Longmeadow, Massachusetts at the Longmeadow Cemetery. And here we're going to look at the variety of gravestone types and also distinctive features and areas. And we're going to break it into two third stop because there's so much in the middle portion of the cemetery that we want to point out. Now, we're looking at the back of the social center for the First Congregational Church of Longmeadow, and the First Congregational Church is actually right in front of that. You can see the steeple. This is a churchyard cemetery, and the oldest burials would have been very close to here on purpose, because a churchyard cemetery, you start right at the front and work backwards. Now, as you creep this way, you got bigger ones, and you might have had individuals with more monies along the way. Now, to give you a sense of what's not right, every stone in this old part of the cemetery is pointed towards the north, and they should be pointing with the inscription on the headstone pointed towards the west. But they've all been rotated clockwise by 90 degrees, and so they're off. And that was because someone, probably in the 1880s, 1890s, wanted to change the look of the cemetery to look like a lawn-style cemetery, which the modern part of the cemetery looks like. And so to get to that standard, they made everything in nice little rows to make it easy for the lawnmowers to cut the grass. Another thing is that most of the footstones are gone. I do see a few, but most of them seem to have been gone away. And most of those were thrown out on purpose by the cemetery superintendent, who wanted, again, to have uniform rows and an easy way to landscape itself. All right. Now, there's other kind of gravestones besides the brownstones. There's a brownstone pedestal style gravestone inside of there. Those are good because you can inscribe it on 4 different sides. And they came into heavy use by the very early 1800s. And so what we're going to do is walk down slightly for you. Okay, now you can start to see some of these gravestones are inscribed with angels on the very top of them. They're very common. The first of these 3 to the right has beautiful angel wings, and the other are much more simple. But that's one thing that you're going to find in a lot of these gravestones. Right? You're also going to start to see some limestone starting to be used, and that's going to come up very soon. But notice then, if we go along a little bit more, there's 4 Revolutionary War veterans, really almost in a row. You can see the medallion style with the flag atop them. And those are pointing out that they fought during the course of the Revolutionary War. If they died during that war, it probably denoted right on them. But most people that fought in the Revolutionary War came back. It wasn't like the Civil War where there was an enormous amount of war deaths. All right, a little bit up. All right, now we're looking at the first of our tabletop gravestones. It's called a table gravestone, and sometimes called an altar gravestone. It typically has 5 legs below it, and they should be an ornate look, and so these do, and that probably means they are the original legs to them. The writing and inscription on top is still quite visible. So on that one, I'll get a picture for you, and you can get a sense of what it looks like. Now, the next one down is the first of our obelisks. It's also the first of the marble styles. It's the family Eli. And around 1810, gravestones type left from being the brownstones and started doing the marble. And that marble style existed almost for the rest of the 1800s, only with a few exceptions. And the obelisk phase lasted from about 1840 to around the 1880s or so. And this one is our first one. There's not too many of these around. Most of the marble ones are tablet forms. All right, so we're going to slide down more for you. Okay, now we're coming back into a section where there's a lot of tablets, and they're very wide this time. One of them seems to be like 5 inches wider. Now, in the back of that is a family room inside of a place with iron fences around it. The corners are held up by limestone marble, and the tablets inside are made out of marble also. Right. And families like to do this. Either they did it with curb or they did it with fencing. Curbing more common, but the fences are okay. And there probably are the original fence poles going through there, and probably the iron is still the same. Well, from this great distance, I can't tell you the name, but it's quite nice. And then we go back to some more brownstone tablets ones. And some are smaller, and it is true that sometimes when you get the smaller ones, that's usually children. Okay, so we're now in front of more brownstones again, and you notice that there's a lot of wear and tear on these. These are the first one we meet that have a lot of wear and tear on them. And of course, if they have the Community Preservation Act in Longmeadow, these can be cleaned quite easily with a compound called B2. Now, if you read the dates on these, they say 1812 or about early 1800s. Okay, now we're coming out to a section that says the Bliss family, and that's a very common name in this cemetery, and it has a beautiful ornate size to the cemetery. This one's for Eunice, the wife of Gaines Bliss, and again you have the angel, but to both sides of her they have a different style now finally, because in the early 1800s they started with, instead of angels, they started with a willow tree with an urn inside of it. Now the urn is quite visible on the one on the right, and the willow tree is quite visible on the one on the left. So you can see how the style of the tree has changed. The one on the right, the willow trees are tiny, and the one on the left, the willow tree is extremely large. Then comes probably 3 children gravestones in a row. Okay, now there's 3 in a group here again, and you got 3 kinds of different angels. A very simple one in the middle, a larger one on the right, but on the left you got a really elaborate one almost what a hairdress, and then the wings are incised about 10 different times with seams, whereas the other two, they just have 1 or 2 seams inside of them. Right? So it's quite an incredible look. Now we only got 1 bit left for the second stop. Okay, and this last portion here, what we're going to do is talk about a couple features, but you're getting more table gravestones. Now here you have 2 kinds of table gravestones, both horizontal, but one on the left has 5 legs to it, and the one on the right hand side has 6 legs to it. And they're alternate legs, so they are the original legs still. And that's quite important. Now, the way that they mounted these things, they put little pegs on the top of them, and they put them in the position that way so they wouldn't slide off or be slid off. And so they're quite nice. And notice the base of them also are made with All right, and now close to these table gravestones, there's 2 that need heavy maintenance, and they received some, and it looks okay, but they need to be redone. And again, with a CPA grant, this can be done. The one behind has lost its top, and it also has broken in the bottom. The reason why it breaks is because solifluction happens when there's hill nearby, pushes the soil preferentially towards the part where the hill is facing or going downwards, and then the gravestone starts to be pointed down because the soil moves stronger on the top than on the bottom, and so it starts to slant. And so that would slant it too much, get outside its center of gravity, and it snapped. And the one closer snapped once higher up, it probably slanted a little bit, and then it broke. And so this is the end of our second stop. The best stones by far are the ones close to the edge, but there's many others. And we're going to sweep back a little so you can see there's 1 more table gravestone there. There seems to be 3 in a cluster down there and 1 in distance. I think there's about, in this first half, about 8 table gravestones. And most of them seems to be quite legible. So thank you very much.